Hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our Odinism videos. We'll be addressing and comparing the two religions of Odinism and Christianity. In the first video that I ever recorded that directly addresses the topic of Odinism, it was brought to my attention by someone in the comments that an error was made in the point that I made about the goddess Freyja. And in my reasons for not believing Odinism, obviously want to make sure my facts are straight on that. So in the spirit of full integrity and being willing to admit when I did something wrong, I wish to make this video in order to not only acknowledge the confusion that I made between the two, but also to properly clarify the matter so an accurate picture of the religion of Odinism is made. The first error that was claimed was that I claimed, according to the individual who left the comment, who will remain nameless, that I claimed Freyja was the wife of Odin, and upon further and closer reading of Lokasenna, it was discovered that Frigg is in fact the wife of Odin, who is referenced in Lokasenna, verse 26. Loki speaking says, "Be silent, Frigg, thou art Fjorgyn's wife, but ever lustful in love, for Vili and Vi, these are Odin's brothers, thou wife of Vithrir, both in thy bosom have lain." Now, according to the footnotes of Sir Henry Adams Bellows in his 1936 translation of the Poetic Eddas, we discover that Vithrir is another name for Odin, and Loki's addressing of her as Odin's wife clarifies this issue for us completely. Freyja is addressed separately, where she is addressed as wife of someone else entirely, and we can confirm this in the footnotes, as well as further study of Gylfaginning, and I will also be citing an article from a website that gives resources on Odinism, where you can confirm this information as well. According to Lokasenna, verse 30, we read, Loki speaking, "Be silent, Freyja, for fully I know thee, sinless thou art not thyself. Of the gods and elves who are gathered here, each one, as thy lover, has lain." While Freyja does share the same accusation from Loki in having slept with everyone present, the accusation wouldn't hold any weight unless she was already married to one of them. This is clarified to be Odr, according to the same scholarly source on all things referring to Norse tradition, Snorri Sturluson, who called Freyja a model of fidelity. So this claim from Loki would of course be scandalous. And since people wanting to know the truth, the whole truth as well, about matters concerning their religion, you're obviously all smart people in wanting to clarify these things. So we're going to confirm this on the website, Norse Mythology for Smart People, norsemythology.org, under that subtext and article, and I'll be reading from Freyja's article, so you can confirm this from them as well. Freyja, in the Old Norse, the word for lady, is one of the preeminent goddesses of Norse mythology. She is a member of the Vanir tribe of deities, but became an honorary member of the Æsir gods after the Æsir-Vanir War. Her father is Njord, who also appears in Lokasenna, coming to her defense, and her mother is unknown, but could be Njorthus. Freyr is her brother. Her husband, named Odr in late Old Norse literature, is certainly none other than Odin. And accordingly, Freyja is ultimately identical with Odin's wife, Frigg. Well, let's not stop there. Let's read most of the article, see what it has to say. While the late Old Norse literary sources that form the basis of our current knowledge of pre-Christian Germanic religion present Freyja and Frigg as being at least nominally distinct goddesses, the similarities between them run deep. Their differences, however, are superficial and can be satisfactorily explained by consulting the history and evolution of the common Germanic goddesses, whom the Norse were in the process of splitting into Freyja and Frigg sometime shortly before the conversion of Scandinavia and Iceland to Christianity sometime around the year 1000 AD. As we've noted above, the migration period goddess, who later became Freyja, was the wife of the god who later became Odin, While somewhat veiled, this is ultimately still the case in Old Norse literature. Freyja's husband is named Odr, a name which is virtually identical to that of Odin, the Old Norse form of Odin. Odr means ecstasy, inspiration, or fure. Odin is simply the word Odr, but with the masculine definite article in added onto the end. The two names come from the same word and have the same meaning. Odr is an obscure and seldom mentioned character in Old Norse literature. The one passage that tells us anything about his personality or deeds, anything beyond merely listing his name in connection with Freyja, comes from the prose Ida, which states that Odr is often away on long journeys, and that Freyja can often be found weeping tears of red gold over his absence. This is a citation from Gylfaginning 35. Many of the surviving tales involving Odin have him traveling far and wide throughout the 9 worlds, to the point that he is obviously more often away from Asgard than within it. This also includes his exile, where Frigg is reported to have slept with Vili and Vi. Many of Odin's numerous bynames allude to his wanderings, or are names he assumed to disguise his identity while abroad. Thus, it is hard to see Freyja's husband as anything but an only nominally distinct extension of Odin. Freyja and Frigg are similarly accused of infidelity to their apparently common husband. Alongside the several mentions of Freyja's loose sexual practices can be placed the words of medieval Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus, who relates that Frigg slept with a slave on at least one occasion. The citation of this, of course, is in the History of the Danes by Saxo Grammaticus. The names of the two goddesses, the article goes on, are also particularly interesting in this regard. Freyja, or lady, is a title rather than a true name. It is a cognate of the modern German word Frau, which is used much in the same way as the English title Miss. And in the Viking Age, Scandinavian and Icelandic aristocratic women were oftentimes called Freyjur, which is the plural of Freyja. Frigg, meanwhile, comes from the ancient root that means beloved. Frigg's name therefore links her to love and desire, precisely the areas of life over which Freyja presides. Here again we can discern the ultimate reducibility of both goddesses to one another. One's name is identical to the other's attributes, and the other a generic title rather than a unique name. So the article then goes on and concludes. Clearly then the two are ultimately the same goddess. Why then are they presented as nominally distinct in the Norse sources? Unfortunately, no one really knows. So, with that issue hopefully clarified, I will acknowledge my error in confusing Frigg and Freyja. Since they're both the wife of Odin, accused of the same crimes, both grieving for their husband's absence during his exile or absences, and both representing the same attributes and both essentially recognized as essentially the same person, you can see where the confusion came from. It's apparently going around. The second error that was brought to my attention by this comment was that I claimed that Freyja committed adultery with her own brother Frigg. Now, the correction, of course, is that Freyja's incestuous affair with her own brother was with Freyr rather than Frigg. Frigg apparently is just another name of Freyja's. In Locusena 32, we see this confirmed. Be silent, Freyja, thou foulest witch, and seeped full sore in sin. In the arms of thy brother the bright gods caught thee, when Freyja her wind set free. Now the brother is further clarified in verse 36 by Loki as the son of Njord, who is the father of Freyja, and Tyr then mentions in verse 33 him by name, that he is the finest of the Aesir. However, since my point was the action and problems therein, rather than the name, it doesn't change the point of the original video. Freyja is a model of fidelity in Odinism, according to Snorri Sturluson, and that model was a hypocrite and a fraud to her husband, who himself wasn't innocent of that crime either. I will, however, acknowledge where I misspoke, apparently another form of her own name twice, then mentioning her brother Freyr. And I'm sure this clarification makes the whole scandal a lot more comfortable for you all to hear, that your goddess of fidelity and morality slept with her own brother and cheated on her husband, the model of fidelity that she was. So, with these issues clarified, I hope to have regained your trust in being willing to admit when I've misrepresented a fact or confused certain details about the deities in Odinism. And I hope that you'll forgive me as well as forgive the individuals who invented your religion for making those same mistakes as well. Also, if you're not familiar with sarcasm, I recommend you look that up too. If you're looking for a religion that is coherent, I would not recommend Odinism, but if you're looking for a religion based on history, I recommend Jesus Christ. Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to more of your comments in the future.